My name's Tony. I'm an alcoholic. And when I drink, it makes it worse. I heard that in my early sobriety right here in this room, and I really didn't understand it till I was sober for a while. But now, sometime later, I realized that once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And when I drink, it makes it worse. I usually start out a meeting with a little prayer to myself. I think God wanted me to share that with you this morning, so I'm going to just take a moment to invite Him into this, so hopefully try to get me out of the way a little bit. Father, use me as a vessel to express your wisdom, love, and joy, so I might help another alcoholic achieve sobriety. If I should speak, let the words be yours that myself and the rest of your children need to hear. Thank you for your love and your guidance today and your presence at this time. Amen. So, I come from a family of 6 siblings. 3 out of the 6 are alcoholics. So, there wasn't a lot of heavy drinking in my home growing up. I grew up feeling loved and was taken good care of. I had a loving mom. My first experience with alcohol was waking up in the middle of the night with one of my older brothers and their friends coming home drunk, pulling me off the top bunk, and the floor kept rushing up at me, and hearing them laughing while they took my bed and threw a pillow down on the floor for me to sleep on. I swore at that point I was never going to be a drunken asshole like they were. Well, so much for that, Even after being sober over 20 years, I still can have outbursts of assholism. So, my first personal experience with alcohol was probably around 8 years old. I can remember being in a friend's fort, and they stole some beer out of their fridge, their dad's beer, and didn't really care for the taste of it, but I didn't want to look wimpy, so I go ahead and I drank with them. But I remember feeling the first time I felt the effects of alcohol was that day after having a couple of beers. Prior to that, I always felt different from my fellows. I always felt like everyone else knew something that I didn't. Everyone else seemed to be more comfortable with themselves, and I was always questioning why I didn't feel comfortable with myself. I just didn't feel like I fit in. But I remember after drinking the first experience with alcohol, it brought me into the circle. I felt comfortable in my own skin. I felt comfortable talking and laughing and being part of, instead of feeling like I was on the outside. So of course I pursued that feeling seriously. I made it a number one priority early in my life. At the age of 9 was the first time I was arrested for drinking beers and smoking pot down in the elementary school hallways. Ended up in juvenile hall. What that taught me is not to drink and smoke pot in the elementary hall. It didn't slow down my desire to find that comfort and ease that I felt from getting outside of my own perception of myself. So I pursued drinking and using my entire life. There was quite a few other times that I got to meet the law enforcement and visit the jails, no matter where I went. I'll tell you right now, I did a lot of geographics. But it's funny. And I'm gonna talk about drugs some because it's a big part of my story. I remember first being introduced to pot, how it was just me and my one friend. He's getting it from his older brother, and I remember how I used to hide from all the rest of my friends. I didn't want them to know that we were smoking pot even. So I've always been, I've learned from an early age how to conceal things and how to act the way I felt other people thought I should act. I was always a good chameleon. It's funny, when you're asked to do something like this, the days prior to getting up here, you got all these things running through your head, that you want to share and say, and then you get up here, and you know what, even after over 20 years of sobriety, finding a lot of peace of mind, my enemy, fear, still uses any aspect of my life to try to creep in and make me feel uncomfortable in my own skin. Another exercise I've learned when I'm getting that feeling, and that's to inhale God, exhale Tony. Inhale God, exhale Tony. See, all the problems in my life haven't come from problems. They've come from my solutions to those problems. Today I have a single solution for anything that I feel is a problem, and I know today every time that I think I have a problem, it's because I've stepped away from God and I've tried to take control of the will again, and that myself is too involved in whatever's going on in life. That myself is making judgments by my own broken perception of what I'm seeing. Through the years working this program, I've learned it's been a constant surrender, a little bit more of self every day. Try to get a little bit more self out, because prior to coming in these rooms, I knew there was a God. And I'll tell you a little story about how I was introduced to God a little bit later, but my self-centeredness and my ego never asked him to be part of my life, never allowed him to be part of my life. Because of that first association with alcohol and my older brothers jerking me out of the bunk, I knew that alcohol could be a problem. And I even learned later on that I knew I had a problem when the consequences of my actions were coming faster than I could lower my standards. And trust me, I lowered my standards as low as a person possibly could. When I had a problem with one thing or one situation, it was a problem. I just tried to remove myself from that problem to something else. So through the years, I tried every type of drug, every type of different alcohol, thinking that, okay, Scotch, I'm getting too many hangovers from Scotch. I got to switch from Scotch to whiskey, And then I was always trying to change things outside of myself. I never realized until I got to these rooms that the problem was me. The problem was within me. It was how I looked at things. I had a broken perception. And when I looked at things, I looked at them as being the issue instead of how I was looking at them. I learned early in these rooms that there's two basic emotions that drive all of my thoughts, all my actions, all my perceptions, and that's love and fear. And in hindsight, I've seen how fear, because I believe myself that fear is aggressive. Fear is like bright lights and loud noises, and it's always trying to get involved, always trying to get in and dictate what I should do, because it likes to inflate my ego and think, well, if you look like this, they're not going to accept you or like you. It's all about me having fear of not fitting in or not being liked or not being the person that I thought that you wanted me to be, so you'd be my friend. That went from a very young age. It wasn't until I came in and did these steps and really invited God in my life and cleaned up my own house and examined those fears, and then started being unselfish and helping others, that I truly started liking myself and realized that my perception of myself was what really mattered. What really matters is my relationship between me and a loving God. Because when that's right, then everything outside is right. So, I was told at an early age, my older brothers, they like to drink and party and what have you, and they used to tell me, well, you don't want to do it this way or go down that path because that doesn't work. We've tried it and we got beat up and it didn't work. But I always had this attitude, well, just because it didn't work for you doesn't mean that I can't do it. So I had to learn everything by experience myself. Like I said, I know because of the trouble I got in Sacramento where I grew up, I got my high school diploma on a Friday, and Sunday morning I was on a jet for Los Angeles, and Monday I went to work for Reynolds Aluminum down in Torrance on my own, and that was a good slap in the face of reality, stepping out of my parents' house into Los Angeles on my own. But the beauty of it was, being a good alcoholic, man, I stepped into the candy store of anything and everything that an alcoholic and a drug addict might want was at my access. So instead of getting away from the problem, which was the Yolo County Sheriff's Department, I just broadened my problem by stepping into Redondo and Hermosa Beach and finding all these full rainbow of things to do to find more trouble with. I can remember 6 months after I was there, I was out on bail from LA County and found myself sitting in the Orange County jail. I thought, this isn't good, this isn't, something's not working very well here. My attorney agreed. So I figured, what, this isn't a good place. People aren't treating me right here. I need to leave. So from Los Angeles, I went to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. So I'm there during Mardi Gras, where you can drink 24/7 and have a great time. And I said, okay, this is where I belong. This is a town for me. It's a non-stop party. Actually, that's where I was told of my first blackout. Because see, as some of you might know, you don't always realize when you're in a blackout. I guess that's why they call it a blackout. But I had these friends that I was with who were saying, well, you were quite the character last night, hanging off the banister, throwing beads in your underwear. I said, what? You gotta be kidding me. I would never do something like that. That's totally, no way. That is not my character at all. Well, as they explained in detail the chain of events, little tiny light bulbs were going off in my head going, oh, I do remember something like that. Yeah. Oh, wow, yeah, I do remember something similar to that happened. And I finally had to admit to myself, wow, I must have got pretty effed up, man, to be doing something like that. But they seemed to be right. I remember putting my hand in my pocket that morning, and I used to always carry a little coin purse, a little leather coin purse. And that morning I had a completely different style coin purse in my pocket. Mine was nowhere to be found, so I must have had a good time, I guess. And I remember a little bit about something at a bar and deciding to trade coin purses with somebody at the bar. So, yeah. What seems like fun can be dangerous. As we all know, alcohol can be very, very cruel. It can get us in a lot of trouble. Three of those six siblings, including myself that I told you about that have drank and used heavily. My oldest brother committed suicide a couple of years ago. He was drunk, told his wife that he loved her, and went out on the front porch and blew his brains out. Now this is the one sibling in my family that I always looked up to. He was my oldest brother. He was a millwright supervisor. I mean, he had everything, all the stuff in life that you could possibly want. Had lots of money, beautiful home that he built over in the hills in Blue Lake. They got to travel around the world. I was envious of what appeared on the outside. But as we all know, this is an inside disease. And we never really know what's going on the inside. That's why our love and tolerance is our creed, because no matter what people look like on the outside, you don't really know what's going on in the inside. I know for myself that my mind can get pretty busy with negativity on the inside, even though I might appear like I'm okay on the outside. So this is a vicious disease. And you know, I'm glad you're all here today. I want to welcome everybody that's fairly new to Alcoholics Anonymous. If you think you might have a problem with alcohol, you probably do. Normal people don't have those kind of thoughts. But I want to tell you it's all right, because we found a way out. We found a way of having peace of mind. And there's a gentleman here named Jim B. that I loved. He used to say that sobriety was nothing more than peace of mind with myself. And I'm blessed to say that I find peace of mind quite often in my life today, because I've worked these steps, and I try to practice the principles, the spiritual principles in these steps, which are love and tolerance and forgiveness and faith. And there's 8 more, but I want you that haven't seen them before to do some research and look them up and learn about the spiritual principles that they ask us to practice on a daily basis. I used to allow fear to dictate my perception, as I said earlier. So I practiced doing things out of fear. The principles behind fear are completely opposite of the principles behind love. I feel blessed that I don't have to allow fear to dictate how I perceive and live my life today. Because when I got here, I was really in a pure negative world. I was in the darkness. Like I said, through the years, I tried a little bit of everything. Collapsed on my main line, doing all those things. And fear kept telling me, well, just because that didn't work, this will. 15 years before I got to this program, I was at the Pacific Ocean with a couple of lady friends. Of course, we were using all the outside substances to try to feel good on the inside. And we decided to watch this sunset at this place called Bonnie Doon, which is about 9 miles north of Santa Cruz. It's a kind of a secluded beach. A lot of nudists like this beach. It was a nice spot. So I'm standing on these cliffs about 60 feet up from the shore, and the next thing I knew, I was standing about 2 feet off the cliffs in midair, with the sensation like somebody had grabbed me by the shirt and picked me up and held me out like this. And I remember hearing this voice saying, "You think you're Superman?" And then it let go of me. And the next thing I know, I'm watching these rocks and waves below me rushing up at me, and I'm dropping into the Pacific Ocean. I went through 6 complete wave cycles. I understand how the tides work and how the moon pulls the water and how waves work in detail, because I could feel the power of the undercurrent pulling me out, yet this very, very strong force slowly coming from the other direction and lifted me as it was coming, and the next thing I knew I was on the crest of a wave with this 60-foot sheer rock cliff in front of me. Of course, I scrambled each time I hit into the cliffs trying to grab a hold of something and couldn't get a grip on anything, and I would slide back down and I'd be pulled out again along the bottom, underneath the water, feeling this force much bigger than myself, holding me up, picking me up, and I was in the crest of the next wave, and I was hitting these cliffs again. Now, in my youth, I went through the Red Cross swimming program and became a senior lifesaver. I was a confident swimmer, but everything I tried couldn't get me out of hitting the spot on the cliffs where I put an X where I hit at the same time over and over again. After about 6 times, I remember the sensation of like I was in the most comfortable recliner I've ever been in. I'm watching all these little tiny bubbles coming up in front of my face, which I realize now was the last of my air because I was inhaled water. And it was kind of lit up under the water. And the voice came to me and told me 4 things. It says, you know, you're just as vulnerable as every other living creature on this planet. It says there's not a living creature on this planet that's better than you, and you're not better than any other living creature on this planet. You have a purpose for being here, but the choice is yours. And I remember deciding that I wanted to be there, and I lifted an arm one more time trying to swim. The next thing I knew, I was bouncing along the rocks of this cove. And a couple of kids that just got out of boot camp, a couple of Marines, had formed a human chain and was reaching out for me. And I got a grip on them, and next thing I remember, I couldn't even lift my head, but I could see my toes leaving tracks in the sand where the 2 of them were dragging me up the beach. You know, that was in 1982, and at that point, it cleared any indecision about whether there was a God or not. Prior to that, I couldn't say there wasn't a God, but I'd never experienced anything to say that for sure that I knew there was a God. From that point on, I knew that God existed because it was Him that was speaking to me when I was drowning and pulled me out of it. Being a good alcoholic that I was, I put God in my back pocket and went, cool, I've got this emergency God now. If I'm ever in a life or death situation, I can call on, and He's going to pull me out of it. So the next 15 years, I pursued my own personal career of drinking and using, and living in Coconut Grove, Florida, and living in Seattle, and spending time in Tucson, and back in Sacramento. It wasn't until 1997 when I came back to Redding here after I'd crushed everything in my life, threw my career away, walked away from my wife because my drugs and alcohol were more important than my marriage, you know. Walked away from a good job because alcohol and drugs were more important than that good job. You know, I abandoned everything that was good in my life because alcohol and drugs were more important. You see, at that time, and I can't tell you exactly when, I quit doing them and they started doing me. They dictated what I was going to do 24/7 because they were more important than anything else in my life, including myself. They always came first. I remember losing everything, and I'm staying at my mom's house out in Pine Grove, and I'm out in the garage one day, and I said, God, I can't keep living like this. I don't want to live like this anymore. I need your help. Picked up my straw, snorted another line, took a hit off my Jack Daniels and Pepsi, and lit up my prototype. And forgot that I even mentioned that. I forgot that I even said those words. In a matter of seconds, I was back. The disease pulled me right away from that moment and said, no, you're mine. You're not going to God, you're staying with me. The next day, a friend said, hey, I got these tickets for a double hitter down in the Bay Area. It was Pittsburgh, the Giants and the Pittsburgh Pirates. And he asked me if I wanted one of them because he couldn't go. Actually, he gave me 3 tickets. So me and a friend took off for the game that coming Saturday. On the way, we stopped in Woodland to see an old friend, see if he wanted to use the 3rd ticket. When I found him, and he was out in his backyard, working in his garden, picking some tomatoes. He said, no, I got things to do, I don't have time to stop what I'm doing and go to the game. He goes, here, have a few tomatoes to eat on your way. I grew up as a kid in Sacramento and Yolo County. I used to catch a tomato bus and go out and pick tomatoes for 25 cents a lug. So I love tomatoes. They've always been a good thing in my life. So I threw them up in the dash of my truck, and I'm heading to the ball game with my buddy. I need to fix another drink, so I pulled over the side of the road. And it's out in the farmland there, and open up the back of my truck to get another Pepsi out of the back to mix with my Jack Daniels. And I see this Yolo County Sheriff's deputy drive by the intersection. Then turn around, come back, drive by us, turn around, pull up behind my truck, and I'm still standing out in the back behind my truck, and I'm thinking, no problem, I'm just getting a Pepsi out of the back of my truck, This female officer started walking up. She's looking at me, looking down at my bumper, looking at me, looked down at my bumper again, and I swear I could see the veins start bulging in her forehead. I forgot I had this bumper sticker that said I belonged to an organization called Style Masters. It was here in Reading. Well, it was a group of people from the western states, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Colorado. We'd get together once a year, and they'd bring bison and elk and buffalo, and we'd all bring game from our areas. We're all hunters and fishermen, and we'd have a big camp out and feast out at the lake. So I had this bumper sticker that said, I love animals. They're delicious. I didn't realize or had no idea that this female police officer was an animal rights activist. She didn't appreciate my bumper sticker like I did. Figured for sure I had weapons in my vehicle, so she called for backup. Of course, going through my vehicle, they found the prototype, and they found this little white powder and open containers. Next thing I know, I'm in jail. Next thing I know, I'm in the courtroom, and this DA says, they want to offer you a deal. Either you can fight this case, or you can go to this rehab program. And of course, I had no idea what they were talking about. I'd never heard of AA. Nobody in my circle or anybody I'd ever been around ever mentioned AA or anything like any kind of recovery, so I had no idea what it was. I think if I would have known what it was, I would have said, I'm due for another weekend in jail or so. Because at that point, a weekend in jail was something to almost look forward to. It gave me a chance to eat a little bit of food and actually maybe sleep and, take a break from life, man. When you're living a life of an alcoholic and a drug addict, as you know, it's not an easy life. It's hard. It's hard on, it wears you out. You get tired. But for some reason, I took this Prop 36 thing when they were talking about, and I found out that I was supposed to come to this room right here and start doing these meetings 3 times a week. Well, even though I'd been a junkie and a prankster gangster and had run in the sleaziest parts of town all over the United States, I had no fear. In fact, I enjoyed fighting as I was growing up. I realize now it was pure fear, just keep people away and try to make them think to stay away from me so I didn't have to deal with people, you know. If they thought I was tough and liked to fight and might hit them or something, maybe they'd stay away. But anyway, the idea of coming to this recovery program, my fear said, no, you don't want to go there. You don't want to go in there, you know. My disease did not want me coming in these rooms, and it told me not to come. So I ended up doing a weekend in jail prior to coming to my first meeting because I went back to see this judge and I didn't have any signatures. And he says, well, bailiff reprimand him. They locked me up and put me back in jail. This was on the end of the week. Following Monday, I came back in front of him. He goes, I'm going to give you one more chance. What do you want to do? Do you want to do some time or you want to try this recovery? That's Prop 36. I said, boy, I'm going to do Prop 36. I swear to God, Your Honor, I'm going to go to the first meeting I find. You don't have to worry about me. Just don't put me back in jail. So actually a young lady by the name of Diane, who was a friend who I used with, who had found recovery, brought me to my first meeting. And I wish I could say that it was wonderful and I understood what was going on then, but if you're fairly new, just keep coming back. It took a while before the fog cleared and I actually heard what people were saying and understood. And you people started telling your stories where you were in the same world that I was, that you were out there drinking and using and living by fear and running amok, but you found a better way. You found a way out. And I heard you guys say, hey, you don't have to keep killing yourself on a daily basis. We found a way out. It's by working these 12 steps. Which slides are 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, who somebody who's already worked them. It's about getting honest with yourself, about yourself, within yourself. And you'd found this new freedom. But you couldn't do it alone. You had to find some type of God of your understanding. You had to find a power greater than yourself, because obviously yourself, here I was 45 years old, yourself isn't powerful enough to keep you away from drinking and doing these other things. I couldn't, like the book says, I couldn't remember with sufficient force how much I screwed up my life, people I loved's lives, my jobs and everything else, so I wouldn't do it again. I couldn't remember with sufficient force where alcohol and drugs took me just last weekend to not start doing them again. Even though, like I said, I quit doing them and they started doing me, and the thrill was gone. When you get here, it's not a fun party anymore, at least for myself. I was doing what I needed to do to feel what I considered well, to feel what I considered normal at that point in my life, because I've been doing it for so long and so much. I wasn't having fun. The thrill was gone. I was just doing it so I could function. You said, hey, take my hand, follow us. We found a way out. You don't have to continue killing yourself on a daily basis. I was out of ideals. I was out of solutions. So I started doing it. I started doing this deal. I started coming to meetings. Like I said, after getting thrown in jail for not going to enough meetings by this judge, I formed a resentment early on in this program. And I said, I'll show that son of a bitch. I'm going to bury him in signatures, man. So I started going to 3 and 4 meetings a day, 7 days a week, to see how I was going to show him. Little did I know that he's seen what kind of a personality I was. And I gave my 1-year coin to that judge that sent me to these rooms. I made a trip down there. I thanked him for saving my life. he would have just put me in jail, I would have taken it as a mini vacation. And I would have went right back to my life of drinking and using. What happened is I found this loving and caring God, and I found a way of living that has brought me a better high than I could ever find anywhere out on the streets, anywhere I went. Today, simply by being of service to God and my fellows, I've found a better high than I ever had in my whole life. By loving unconditionally, I learned to love myself, which I realized I never did. I never really knew what true love was. I knew what physical love was. I thought that's what love was. But until I started trusting this God that loved me unconditionally, I was never able to trust myself because of my broken perception and my bad choices and decisions my whole life. I was afraid to trust myself. God told me, I'm with you. You can trust us. And today I know if I invite God into my life, and you know, I was sitting in a meeting one time and I was looking at the letters AA, and it occurred to me that the letters AA is the way to have God in my life. If I simply accept the fact that there's a power greater than myself that wants to be in my life out there, then simply allow Him to be part of my life. That's all it takes. I found there's a loving God that wants to be part of our lives, every one of our lives. He loves us. We're His children. He loves us like a dad. And He wants to be part of our lives. But the biggest gift He gave us was choice and free will. And He refuses to take that away from us. So we have to choose ourselves, our own willpower, to invite God into our life and allow Him to be part of our life. It's our choice, like He told me in the ocean. The choice is yours. At that time, I didn't realize what that was about. Excuse me. You know, when you learn what true unconditional love is, and the power of it, it blows me away. It sweeps me away. It takes me away from that self, from that scared kid that was looking for anything outside of himself and not be afraid of life. And not feeling like he could fit in. He fills that hole with love. When you invite Him into your life, He loves you so much that it's more than you can hold on to. It's more than you can handle. You have to share it because your cup's running over. You're so filled with love that you automatically start sharing love. And I've always been about the good buzz. Like Earl says, I've always wanted the big buzz. And today I've found that when I'm truly out of my own way and allowing God to show me the way and walking on His path, and I'm getting a good buzz. I'm getting a high like I never got ever before, and I want more. The only way I can keep that, like they say in these rooms, is to give it away. God tells me the same thing about unconditional love. You want to feel loved? Love people. It's that simple. Be of service to others. If you see somebody needing help or somebody sad, give them your hand. Give them your smile. Give them your love. Because it truly is, and giving it or giving it away is the only way we can keep it. I have no idea what the time is. I can keep talking about how great God is. How long am I supposed to be up here?
10 more minutes, buddy.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. You know, today I'm truly blessed. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. I love Reading. You know, I lived here in Reading for almost 25 years. Today I live a half a block from the ocean, in Ocean Beach, down in San Diego. I'm still working full time. I work at a psych hospital. So every day I get to share that love with people with behavioral problems, let's say. It's a behavioral health hospital. And then we have 4 other buildings we bus in 100 outpatients on a daily basis. So God has put me in a place where I can share that abundance of love, of unconditional love that He's given me. That extra that I have that's too much for me to hold on to myself, I get to walk down the halls of a full lockdown facility and share it with people who are having problems with their behavior. I get to smile, say hi. I get to be their friend because they're lost. They've found themselves lost. A lot of them have chemical imbalance or chemical deficiencies and are fighting a tough fight. Well, guess what? I've fought a tough fight. If any of you ever heard about the books called God is My Co-Pilot, and have said to yourself that God is your co-pilot, trade seats. You be the co-pilot. It'll take a lot of the turbulence out of your flight, and you'll find that you're landing in a lot better places. You know, where I live, there's thousands of meetings. My home group is a Sunday morning beach meeting in Pacific Beach. We meet on the beach at 9 a.m. and form a circle with the waves crashing behind us. And the whole thing about going along spiritual lines, I love it. I love it. Like I told you, when you share positive, you get fed positive, you know. Today I have a choice between love and fear. And if I make the choice of love, then I'm fed love. If I try resting on my laurels, to say, okay, God, I got this, or don't even talk to God at all, say, okay, I've already had my contact with God, I know about His love, and I'm doing good, I've been sober a while. Let me tell you, at 21 years, fear hasn't given up on me. Fear hasn't said, I don't want you anymore. It still pops up its ugly head at times and said, hey, you better take control of this. It's not turning out the way you think it should. This isn't going to turn out in your favor. You're not going to benefit from this. Love says that's not true. If you share love, you're going to get twice as much back. And one thing I know for sure, love is more powerful than fear. If you choose love, fear ain't got a chance. If you invite love into your life on a daily basis, first thing in the morning they tell us to pray, invite that love into your life. If you've already invited that love into your life, how's that story go? That fear knocked on the door, love sat relaxed in the chair. Fear started pounding on the door. Let me in, let me in. Love sat relaxed in the chair. Fear started kicking the door and pounding on the door and screaming, open the door, let me in, let me in. Love quietly got up, walked over, and opened the door, nothing was there. Love can't be in the same space. Fear can't be in the same space as love. You know, they told me to get inside my hula hoop and take care of what's inside my hula hoop. And that's me. I can't fix you. I can't tell you what to do. All I can do is share what I've done for myself and how it's turned out. I can tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Today, without even asking, grace just pours out of the sky and lands on me. I live a half a block from the ocean. I ride my Harley Davidson back and forth to work every day. I get the abundance of love, and I get to share that. I work in an environment where people don't feel much love at all. And I get to walk through their life and bring a little light into their darkness. Because, see, I've been in the darkness. I've lived in the darkness. I know what the darkness is. So that's why I do not fear to walk into the darkness. I know my light is brighter and stronger than the darkness. So I hope all of you find light in your life. I hope all of you find a power greater than yourself who's going to pull you out of that darkness and say, walk with me, walk in the sunlight of the Spirit. Let me do this for you. You know, I'll close with this. Part of my prayers in the morning, I ask God, show me what I can do for you. At the end of the day, when I review my day, all I find is this response that said, here, let me do this for you. I try to serve God, and in trying to serve Him, He serves me. He gives me things in my life that I never knew I wanted, or I didn't even go after or try for, but are better than anything that I could have thought I wanted. He gives me peace of mind, like Jim B. used to say, sobriety is nothing more than peace of mind with myself. And I think peace of mind is the richest possession I've ever owned. So I'm going to keep coming back so you guys can help me stay on that path, seeking peace of mind. Thanks for letting me share.